Hey, Sportsland. It's Big J, my media sports group. And today I have a special guest that I'll be bringing on to share his coaching journey and, and the history of his roots and where everything started, the etymology of it. But first, I want to give thanks to my sponsor, CompassTimePieces.com. Go to CompassTimePieces.com. American made, American born, Swiss made. It's American born, Swiss made. That's a high luxury end watch. Very good. It's just made the top 5 African American owned watch companies in the country. And actually it came in number 1. So congratulations. And I hope you continue to be my sponsor. All right, Coach, how you doing, man? Introduce
Doing
yourself.
well, James. Great to reconnect
Yes.
after a lot of years. We've stayed in touch a little bit with social media, but when you left Pittsburgh and went to Kansas City, it was nice to keep in touch some. But now it's a real thrill to talk to you in person here, or at least by video.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's pretty good. So, Coach, you're one of the coaches that came out of our area in the Pittsburgh area who had success, and everything starts somewhere. So where did it all start for you at?
Well, when I was in college, I knew from the lack of minutes I was getting on the floor as a player that I always had a passion about basketball. And I knew that I was majoring. Well, I knew that when I decided to choose my major the third time, it was to be a social studies teacher because I thought that would be a route to get into to be a high school coach.
Mm-hmm.
So my next to last year of college, I did some scouting for a few high school programs, and that's after I left, playing actively. And then on my senior year in college, I was fortunate to join a team as a volunteer coach, and I was a General Braddock team in 1973. Paul Birch was the head coach. So he asked me off the cuff, why are you scouting? And we knew Paul Birch, so he said in a few other words, why are you scouting for other teams and not me? I said, well, wanted to get in coaching. He said, well, I can use you. So he put me on the road that year and scout opponents, and I attended a few practices, but we made the WPAL playoffs. We lost in a championship game, but we were the first team to not win the WPIL championship, which is the regional championship here in
Mm-hmm.
Western Pennsylvania, to make the state tournament. So then he put me on the road and had me scouting the teams that future opponents we might be facing, and we happened to win the state championship that year. So I said, wow, this is great coaching. 1 year you're part of a state championship. And of course, a lot of credit goes to Paul Birch, the head coach, and Greg Smith, the assistant coach, because they welcomed me in. But I said, this is fantastic. I wonder how many times it's going to happen. Well, that was the last time. And I'm 74 now. So you have to enjoy those moments while they last, because you never know when they may happen again. But I love my career. I lived my passion. I lived my dream. And, we had a lot of good teams and we had many good players, even if, we'd be successful now off the court, got their degrees. So that was the start of it.
So, and before I move on, I wanted to talk to you about the start of actually coaching at the collegiate level. But before I ask you, did any of the Knights play with you down there, like Billy or
Billy? I played against Billy Knight, and Billy was 2 years younger than me. So I graduated high school in 1968, and of course he was our rival in Braddock. He graduated in 1970. When I was at General Braddock, Ronnie Knight played the first year of the merger. The merger, of course, was our 3 towns, Rankin, Braddock, and North Braddock, and that was 1971 and 1972. And Ronnie was a star player for that high school team. And then the next year in 72, 73, that's when I joined General Braddock in the second year of the merger. Kerry Knight came along the following year, but he was playing for St. Anselm High School in Swissvale.
Mm-hmm.
So he lived in Braddock, but his family decided to send him to the, to St. Anselm, who had a very good school, good program. We did not get a chance to coach Terry, and then the ones after that was when I was gone already. So,
Yeah, because Mark and Durrell,
Mark,
Mark
yeah,
and Byron graduated with me. He went to they were all up at Penn Hills.
yeah, right, yeah,
So they had moved up. The
yeah.
family
That's
had
where the
moved to Penn
family
Hills
moved.
by that time. But that's a big basketball family. Billy Knight played in the ABA, the NBA, and then he was a general manager for Atlanta Hawks. And I don't know what he's doing now, but then Terry Knight also made his bones. Also, you know,
Yes, they both did well. Billy and
yeah,
Terry, and I saw Billy when he was in town in the fall. He came up. Coach Gergerich was being recognized into the Croatian American Sports Hall of Fame. So I was the one to nominate him, and the Pitt players all came in, and Billy was there, and Terry was there. But I'll tell you some interesting fact about Billy and Terry Knight. They grew up on Cherry Way in Braddock, right off of 6th Street. On the corner of 6th Street and Cherry Way was Jeff Baldwin. Jeff Baldwin played at Duquesne University.
mm-hmm.
Also growing up there was Pete Harris. Pete Harris played
Petey
for
Harris,
Northeastern University.
right?
Also growing up in Cherry Way was Eric Jefferson, who played at St. Anselm and went to Northeastern University. And both Pete Harris and Eric Jefferson are in the Hall of Fame for Northeastern. Also growing up 2 blocks away on 4th Street was Jose Champagne, who possibly is considered the greatest player also. We have to give Billy his adieu because Billy made it. But
Yeah,
Jose was a fantastic basketball player, and he grew up 2 blocks away. So right in that 2 block area of Braddock, you had about 6 Division I basketball players all went on to success.
that name right there, and that's a lot in that one area. But that one name right there, when I was a kid, man, I was a teenager. I was in high school. We used to go up to Connie Hawkins and watch the games up there. And
Yeah,
Jose Champagne was playing, and we were like, this guy's he was long and athletic.
yeah.
You know, he would just tear the rim down on people. And I'm like, somebody said he went to, I don't know, I think he went to Gannon or something like that.
Jose first went to Duquesne, and then
Mm-hmm.
he went to Joliet. He left Joliet, and I became assistant Robert Morris. So I brought him in to Robert Morris, and he sat out 1 year, and then he played his last year of eligibility of Robert Morris. He started for us, and then he was drafted by the Phoenix Suns.
Mm-hmm.
So Jose had a great game, but he was one of the
Yeah,
many greats from the area. And of course, Rankin, we had Jerome Flyers, and Braddock also had Lester Strong. So it
yeah,
was a basketball hotbed down there.
yes, it was. And then I got to see him like when we were watching him play. It was, he was older. You know what I'm saying? It was, so. But so you started coaching. Where at, Coach? Where was your first college
Well, I
job?
started coaching at General Braddock, and I was assistant for 2 more years. And then when Mr. Birch retired, Coach Birch retired, I was named the head coach at General Braddock in 1975. I spent 2 years as a head coach. I was fortunate to have good players. Greg Smith was not only my assistant coach, but he was my partner. We did everything together. And after winning the section for the second year, 77, Jeff Baldwin made the Round Ball Classic, Dapper Dan Round Ball Classic in 1976. Pete Harris made in 1977. Well, at that time, the jobs we had were federal jobs with the General Braddock school system.
Mm,
So they cut the one federal program that myself and Billy Knight's mother were part of, and 8 of us got furloughed. So I was looking for a job, and Sonny Vaccaro that year, and the book coming out on Sonny Vaccaro is going to be a fantastic book. Souls. Now, Sonny Vaccaro is from Trafford. I'm going to talk a lot, James.
yeah, go
They
ahead.
already did an ESPN 30/30 on him and
Yeah.
a movie here. Now they're coming out with a book on him. So you're talking about someone from our valley here that made it successful.
Oh, he came up a lot.
So many
He came
players.
up a lot. He came up in a lot in our conversation with Marvin. So yeah,
Sonny,
yeah.
Sonny loved Western Pennsylvania. He still does, and he treasures his days with the round ball. Well, going back, I'm looking for a job. So Sonny had me as one of the coaches for the Western Pennsylvania team in the Dapper Dan Round Ball Classic. And he said, Matt, what are you going to do next year? I said, I don't know, Sonny. I said, I'm looking for a job. He said, there's an opening at Robert Morris, and I'm going to recommend you. So the next thing I know, we're in the lobby of the Marriott in Greentree, the headquarters of the Dapper Dan Roundball Classic, and he sees the head coach of Robert Morris. He says, I want to see you. The coach then was Tom Wire. And Sonny says, this is your assistant you're looking for. And Tom said, we have applications open and we're interviewing process. And Sonny says, no, this is the coach here. This is your assistant coach. And I'm standing there not knowing anything going on. And I thought, well, I already met college coaches that recruited first Jose and then Pete Harris and Jeff Baldwin. So, I knew some, and I always thought that, who think a kid from Rankin would be a college coach, right? Well, when Sonny made that introduction, the next thing I know is about a week or two later, I went to the Robert Morris campus and I got hired at my first assistant coaching job in college for $2,000.
Wow.
And I was thrilled. I said, my wife and I had a baby that year, and I said, well, I'll do what I can.
Got to do what I got to do.
So of course, my mom did ask, well, you just stay with us in Rankin. He knew I had a passion. And then the following August, the assistant coach, Jack Furjanic, got another position as an assistant at Western Carolina. So I was left alone. Well, then I was fortunate where they elevated me to that job for $12,000. So I was very excited. I got my chance in coaching. I was making less than I was teaching, but I figured I have to make the step career-wise and just, your dream. So that's
cool.
how it happened. Good, my first college job.
Oh, wow. So and then of course you became a head coach eventually at that same place. So was there any jobs in between that when you were assistant to when you became head coach of Robert Morris?
I was the assistant for 2 years, and Tom Warwick, the head coach, resigned. So there was candidates interviewing for the job, and I was just happy being assistant at that time. I did not apply for the job. Robert Morris was, I think, looking big.
Mm-hmm.
Robert Morris was the first school to go from junior college to Division I. They didn't have winning seasons, okay? Mm-hmm. We had great players, but we've improved. And Jose's year, we were one game under 500, which was a big step for the program. And we had some good young players in, which I helped recruit. We had good veterans, and Mike Morton was another transfer in there, along with Jose. So when the job was open, I don't think it was a very attractive job for veteran coaches to come to this new Division I program that never had a winning season. They looked at it as a very, very hard rebuilding job. I got to know the athletic director, Skip Applin, well. And through that time, the interview process, I just worked my butt off recruiting because it was a Division I program in Western Pennsylvania. I was able to drive there from Rankin 35 minutes. And, what else could be better for me? I was patient, and all of a sudden Skip came to me and says, why don't you put your application in? He says, I think, you would have a chance. And I says, okay. So I put my application in. It took probably about 6 to 8 weeks before a coach was hired. But through that whole process, I was working with the players, returning, recruiting, and then I would say probably in late May, they offered me the job and I accepted it. And then, of course, the rest is, they say the rest is history. It was my start as a Division I basketball coach. And I was 26 at that time.
26.
So it was a great opportunity.
And then you had a lot of the local talent.
We sure did.
Yeah, some players. I remember they were a little older than me, but I remember because I had that tournament team. There was a lot of guys you played. You had Dobbs, you had Mark.
Yes.
Who else? A couple guys from Valley. Man,
yes,
a lot
Mark
of guys.
McLeod, Chip Harris. I think that was the key in me getting the job was when they were recruiting, they didn't work heavily with Western Pennsylvania players. And being from Western Pennsylvania, we can go back and the talent back there was astounding. I mean, you look at the rosters of the Dapper Dan Roundball Classic, not only did you have the Pennsylvania team going Division I, but you had many of the Western Pennsylvania and city Catholic players getting Division I offers. Well, just passionate about recruiting those local players. And it started out Tommy Parks, Paul Hensler, Johnny Russell. Of course, Johnny Russell and Tom Parks were part of that WPAL championship team. And then I was influenced Jose to go there. Then after that, we had players, of course, Chipper Harris, Forrest Grant, two key guards to the program. We got them. It was lights out. We didn't realize it then, but they were not being recruited by the higher level schools because Chipper Harris had Billy Varner on his team.
Yeah.
Forrest Grant had Ronnie Rowan and Dwight Collins on his team.
Yeah, Ronnie.
So both were not the key scorers to their team, but for me, I saw potential, and I figured if we can get these guys, why get a 25-point scorer from another team? We can get these two guards who are not only quick, athletic, coachable, can score and pass. And then, of course, I mentioned Tommy Parks. He was the first key recruit we ever got. But it just blossomed down there from there. And then the others were coming in: Mark Dobbs, Eddie Bombick, Mark McLeod. Excuse me for missing a few names here. I don't have them in front of me, but Skip Koskowski from Ringgold. And you know what? The one thing about that Robert Morris team is they're all close to this day. We have a group chat. Everyone participates. These guys are still brothers today. And that's what was the thrill of coaching them.
Yeah, and you brought up a name. I almost forgot about him because I played in an adult league with him some time ago when I was still living in Pittsburgh. Mark McLeod.
Yeah.
Because I remember when he played, he was tough. Mark was a tough player.
Mark was just a winner. No matter, he may not score 20 a game, but at the end of the game, if he's defense on you, you know you're going to be beat up.
Yeah.
You know he's going to get those rebounds. You know he's going to get those loose balls. You know he's going to make the hustle plays. You know he was going to set up his teammates with a good screen or a good pass. He was going to get his second chance points. So Mark was a huge contributor, a lot of reason for our success.
Yeah, he was a good player. Those Valley teams back then, those teams always had good talent on them, man. Always. Yeah. Priors.
BB.
Yeah, BB Flannery.
Yeah, one of the top guards in West Pennsylvania history.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of talent came out of there. A lot of talent came out of that way. So, basically, Robert Morris, finally, you said when you took him over, it was kind of like an expansion situation. Nobody really wanted the job, felt it was a hard rebuild, and it was tough. It was going to be tough, but it was your opportunity, and you seized it. And then a few years down the line, you got a chance to meet a coach and play against a coach against a coach that was very respected across the nation, Bobby Knight.
Yeah. Well, the first 2 years I was a head coach, we were 7-19 and 9-18. And the second year of the program, there were rumors that I was going to lose my job. But, I mean, back then it was the job of my dreams. So I never really felt any pressure. So near the end of my second year, we beat Penn State at Penn State. And we never had a signature win before that. So it was huge for our program because it was on statewide TV. Mm-hmm. So not only was it big locally, but it was a TV game. And I remember going to office next morning, and Gus Kropp, who's a former coach of Robert Morris, was the head of security. And I walk into my office, and there was a fire extinguisher on my chair. And with a note, "Matt, you're now fireproof, Gus." So I figured, well, I guess I can get my job another year. So the following year, without a senior on the team, we made the NCAA tournament. We beat Long Island in our conference championship game, the ECAC Metro South, which is now the NEC. Mm-hmm. And our first opponent was Indiana in the opening round. Well, Indiana was coming off the 1982 championship. So this was coming off the 1981 championship when the Final Four was in Philadelphia and they beat North Carolina.
Isaiah Thomas team, yeah.
Yes. So we're playing Indiana, and the headlines was Bobby Knight versus Bobby who? Because Robert Morris. And that was a headline in the USA Today. So we went into the game, and back then it was like a ride for 10 days because we're one of the first conference tournaments to end up. Well, they end up kicking our butt. So walking off the court, Coach Knight and I were together, and he said, "Can I, I want to talk to you." I says, "Okay." As we're walking, I said, "Okay." So he said, "Next year, don't just be satisfied to get into the tournament, but prepare to win." And he told me, he says, "You didn't do a very good job preparing your team. Read your quotes, seen the articles." He says, no matter the opponent, you must prepare to win. And I think back, that was something that Paul Birch taught me also. But I think caught up in the hoopla, we were in it for the ride. So he said, "Can I speak to your players after the press conference?" I said, "Sure." So he had his press conference as a winning coach, and I had mine. And I get to the locker room, he's standing there. He said, "Coach, I didn't want to go in without you." I said, "That's fine." So he comes in, and players are sitting in there, they dejected, and they kind of looked up. What's he doing in our locker room?
Mm-hmm.
Well, he relayed the same message to the players. He said, "There is not a senior in this room." He said, "You have to set the goal right now that you want to come back next year and you want to win your first game." And that was kind of like the rallying cry for us the whole off season. We recruited a couple more players, but every player returned. And as we enter the next year, like any team during the season, you have your ups and downs, you get your bumps and bruises.
Mm-hmm.
But we won our conference tournament again, which qualified us for the NCAA. Well, the NCAA went from 48 teams to 54 teams that year. So the first round games were held in Dayton, Ohio on a Tuesday. So we lost to Georgia Southern in the West Virginia tournament that year. Our opponent was Georgia Southern. So
Mm-hmm.
we were thinking, wait a minute now, we got the message, prepared to win your first game. Now here we're playing Georgia Southern, who beat us in December. We're going to get these guys back. Well, we went there with a mission, and we won the first NCAA tournament game in Robert Morris history, and that inspired us. Well, to help our program also, Bob Knight was part of Medalist Basketball Clinics. And being a member of the NABC, the coaches organization, I got to know him, and he said, "You call me for anything you need. You need any help." People don't realize, they see this Bob Knight as this mean guy that's on TV all the time. But he really had a huge heart. And he was, if you talk to coaches in the Big Ten, Gene Keady, some of the others, they will tell you what a great guy Bob Knight was off the court. A lot of the things that he did came from the heart. Ask Landon Turner. Google that story.
Yeah.
Landon Turner's story will bring a tear to your eye. That's the Bob Knight we all knew. Well, we were always trying to see how we can get more exposure. So we talked to medalists and about they were doing one-man clinics back then with Bob Knight, Dean Smith, some of the other top coaches in the country. And at the Final Four, I approached medalists and I said, "Do you think we can get a one-man clinic come to Pittsburgh and we can have it at Robert Morris?" And he said, "Well, we could approach Coach Knight about it." Well, next thing I know, I get a phone call from Coach, and he says, "I hear you want to, you're interested in me coming to a one-man clinic at Robert Morris." I said, "Yeah, Coach, we're looking to get more exposure for our program." He said, "Well, that'd be great. I'm in." He said, "Work the details out with medalists." He said, "The only thing is, I'm telling him is you're going to spend 2 days with me." I said, "Okay." So I was take him to lunch. That was my my responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
Walk him into town, take him to the hotel, um, you know, with the needs he had. So he did a one-man clinic. The opening night was at a local hotel, and the second day was on our campus. That gym, if you ever been to John Jay Gym, was overflowed with coaches like it would be for our playoff game. So now that gave us our campus the exposure we needed by coaches throughout the country, because coaches flew in from all over the country. So he was wonderful. We gave the clinic. The clinic was great, and he let our players sit in on it too. And I think that was huge because our players got a chance to see him teaching the same things we are as our staff back then. And once again, it reinforced things, and I think it opened. It was just another boost for our program. So yeah,
That's
Bob
good.
Knight was very, very good to us.
My junior college coach, they were friends. They used to go. He used to write our coach a handwritten letter about them going on fishing trips and stuff like that after the seasons was over up there in Wyoming. And he was similar to him. He was tough, but we understood why, because it wore off on us anyway. A lot of us were already mentally tough. When your coach is like that too, it's one of them situations. So I kind of learned to respect Bobby Knight because I knew that I played under that coaching style. You know what I'm saying? At the junior college level. So I understood. And I was like, I got to know it. At first, I was like, no, I would never want to play for him. But, if you get into those types of systems and you start having coaches like that, they're tremendous to play for because they just want to see you win. And you got to do things right, man. I mean, every coach wants that, but he just took. I mean, he was just with the sound bites. People, it was like you said, it was people listen to all that stuff, but
Well, I think his relationship with the media was different than other coaches. Where other coaches would, you know, respect the media. I don't know if coach ever looked at all the media members as, as someone he would like to spend a day with. And I always say you never see his former players. You hear Isaiah Thomas tell stories, but Isaiah Thomas never said that Coach Knight did not help him in his career. He will say the opposite. Okay. And you look at all the players, there's a few that left Indiana because they couldn't take that style of coaching, but there's a large majority that stayed. And to this day, will say that he was one of the greatest mentors they ever had. And even today, you see coaches on the sideline, they lose their cool. They'll yell at players. So you see some comments in the paper or in the media by some coaches that they'll say their players are not performing well. They're not, quote, beginning of the year. You saw some quotes from coaches that saying that their players aren't buying in. They were disappointed, and they let them down. But as the year goes on, that's where the learning process takes place. You start to understand each other better. You understand after some losses that maybe if I try to do it coach's way, maybe we can be a winning team. Maybe we can improve. I think, Coach Knight gets a bad rap there. You watch the sidelines of a game, you see coaches demonstrating all the time. I mean, I'm going to use one, you know, Danny Hurley. I mean, he loses his cool. He says bizarre things in the paper, but his players never say anything negative about him. And we can say that about a lot of coaches in the country. Some are not as demonstrative about it, okay? Demonstrative about it. Some aren't openly in the media critical, but even those that are, their players understand them. And, I'm going to use another example. The coach at UCLA this year and Rick Pitino, let's use two. Mick Cronin and Rick Pitino, they both criticized their teams publicly beginning of the year. And you heard all the media saying these players aren't going to do anything now. They're going to quit on the coach. They're going to, they're not going to respond. It's a shame what they're doing. You look at two of the hottest teams in the country now,
St. John's,
UCLA and St. John's.
Yeah.
So these coaches know how to get across their court. But what you don't see off the court is the love. You don't see the hug to a player after a good practice. You don't see a coach telling a player, hey, you had a great one today. Even though you had a bad one yesterday, you came through today. You don't see them preparing them for life with life lessons and relating it to your coaching style. You just see them yelling and thinking that's what they are. But I'll guarantee you, there's a lot more love that you don't see outside of the camera than you do on. And that's where the success of those, quote, coaches that are, quote, hard on their players. I was hard on my players. I'm sure there's some now, James, that do not agree with some of the tactics or some of the things I said. But I can show you my text list and I can show you my cell phone. There's a lot out there in social media. There's a lot out there that I stay in touch with.
Yeah, I know.
Proud of it. I wouldn't have changed it and I wouldn't have done something different because those guys are all family to me now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad that they think of me that way also.
And after you left Robert Morris, did you go to Marist then?
I went to Marist for 2 years.
And you were up there with a good friend of mine.
His freshman year.
Okay.
And, we had 3 international players in that program and seniors returning. So at that time, I did it financially. I came to a contract stalemate with Robert Morris, and the school has been wonderful to me. So I have, you know, I mean, no hard feelings, but there's always a person that doesn't want to, maybe pay you what the market is going to do, asking. So I went to Marist. It was a wonderful opportunity. I liked it up there. The players were great. And the first year we won the conference outright, which was the same conference we were in, ECAC Metro South. And then the second year we made it to the NCAA tournament in Rick's, Rick Smith's sophomore year. But leaving Pittsburgh at that time, I'm an only child. I got the job in September. I never moved the family, and it was hard. It was hard then. Things were so hectic that you know I just you were part of Rankin, James. Smile,
Yeah,
man. Come on.
I know.
You know what Rankin's like, all right?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
wasn't the type of kid who can just get up and leave Rankin at that time. My parents were there. My dad was a mayor there for 43 years, 2 months, and you know, I I loved growing up there. I loved living there, and I loved Pittsburgh. And I wasn't ready to move the family, so it was either move the family or me leaving coaching. So I left coaching for 4 years and came back to Pennsylvania, and I became after being away, I became a little league coach, a athletic director, the grade school where our our three children went, and I just felt it was a need to make the family decision at that time.
And while you were up there, but the year that you left, a good friend of mine's, he played at CCAC
Daryl
on the north
McClung.
side. Yeah,
Yeah,
he played for Coach Shea.
yeah.
What your relationship with Coach Shea? What was that like?
Coach Shea was a mentor and a friend. When this goes into another story, but he always had good players at CCAC. He developed players on and off the court, and I respected how he handled his program. So when it came to Marist, not only Daryl McClung, but I recruited Carlton Wade from
Uh-huh.
Colton, and Carlton was a starter for us as a freshman the year we made the NCAA tournament. So I talked to some people back in Pittsburgh, and they told me about Daryl McClung, and I saw him play a few times. So when I told Coach Shea I was interested, Coach Shea spoke very highly of him, and I respected Coach Shea. And then we signed Daryl McClung to a scholarship. So once again, I felt bad when I left Marist and left him there, but it was, to me, it was giving him a scholarship opportunity at a
Mm-hmm.
school that made it to an NCAA Division I tournament. But another story about Coach Shea is when I became a junior college coach in 2000 at Polk State College. My only experience in coaching junior college players was those that I saw play,
Mm-hmm.
and those coaches that I knew. I called Coach Shea, and we had a sit down, and I wanted the blueprint of how he ran a junior college program. Because back in those days, most of your junior college players were players that did not qualify for some reason out of high school,
I was one of them.
whether it be their test score matching their GPA. And the second thing, not only do you want to win, but you want to get your players opportunities after their 2 years. So that meant you had to get them, the guidance they needed academically, whether it was just be lack of study habits, whether it be, priorities, off the court. Maybe you should do your homework that day or studying that day and not wait till the night before test. Okay. So Coach Shea gave me his plan, his playbook, and I followed it in our minds, nothing written down, but I followed that through. And I think that was one of the reasons why I had a lot of success at Polk State College of 17 years.
Okay, and that's down in Florida. My
Yes.
nephew played for you, Chucky Humphreys.
Yes, Chucky was a good player for us. I had him for a year, and Chucky was just an athletic.
Yeah.
He wasn't the
Yes.
type of guy that's going to go out and stick threes, but you talk about going to the hoop and getting those offensive rebounds and scoring, you know, inside the arc, and defense. Well, Chucky also came from a great program, Aliquippa.
Yeah.
Chucky had a great career. He went to another school in Philadelphia, and then Indiana, Pennsylvania. He had a lot of success.
Yeah, IUP, and he's still there now. He's working with a girls program, travel team, but there's a lot of skills and drills. He does videos of them while he's training them, and he's coaching. He's coaching that girls, so he's enjoying himself. He never came back to Pittsburgh, Aliquippa. He's still up in Indiana, PA, living. So
Well, you filled me in on when we talked. So hello to Chucky,
yeah,
and I'm glad he's giving back to his passion, and I'm sure he's going to have a wonderful influence on all of those young players he's worked.
he will. So afterwards, I looked and I'd seen that you coached a lot of places, Coach. You were also at Pitt Greensburg, also.
Yes. After I left Marist, I moved back, of course, to Rankin, and the school district then became Woodland Hills. So when the job opened in 1991, I looked at that as a good way to get back into coaching. I miss coaching.
Mm-hmm.
So when I got the job at Woodland Hills for 4 years, once again, I'm coaching players now who I know their parents. So that was a fun experience because I think that helped me. Okay, because they kind of knew who I was, also a local guy coming back. And after 4 years at Woodland Hills, Pitt Greensburg was starting a program, basketball program, athletic program. They did not have an athletic program for 20 years.
Wow.
So I was contacted by a dear friend, Bill Priaco, and he called me and said, "Hey, Matt, Pitt Greensburg is opening up." I said, "Oh, Bill, I don't know, man, I don't know. They haven't had a program there." He says, "No," he says, "Dan Swalga is the AD." I said, "What?" Now, Dan was a women's coach of Robert Morris when I was a men's coach, a friend of mine. So I called him up. I said, "Dan," I said, are you guys going to Division III? He said, "Yeah, we're going to Division III." I said, "Well, I'm interested." He said, why are you interested? He said, "What do you come out here for?" I said, "Because I think it'd be fun starting another program from scratch and seeing where we can go." So I got the job in 1985. My first three recruits actually back then: Clyde Manns, Mark Brown, and Bob Board from McKeesport. But Clyde Manns, I couldn't have picked a better recruit to start a program with. Clyde was the face of the program. So I recruited Clyde, and in the fourth year, after 3 years of building a program and got a few transfers and got recruits, we became, we were Division III. Well, we won our conference tournament back to back in '99 and 2000. And Clyde was the GOAT
Mm-hmm.
for Pitt Greensburg. We had got other good players, Jason John Gianmarco, not Gianmarco, I'm sorry, Josh Sapochny. I'm thinking John Gianmarco run that Pittsburgh Basketball Classic. So, but John will be very impressed, but he wasn't the player that those guys were, okay? So,
Clyde Manns, because I remember at that time I was one of Coach Shea's assistants. He was a guard, right?
yes, from Brashear High School.
Yeah, that's okay. Yep.
Guard, football quarterback, top baseball player. Clyde excelled in 3 sports.
Mm-hmm.
But they looked at Clyde as being undersized. And again, it was the matter of qualifying academically. So Pitt Greensburg, being a regional campus of Pitt, I convinced the director of admissions that I guarantee you this young man will graduate from this program. And Clyde did graduate, okay? So, but when he came in, he was just a leader from day one. I couldn't have had a better teammate for the team, role model for the other players to look up to, practice habits, studying. Clyde did everything he needed to do. And right now he's going for his doctorate program at Point Park.
Okay.
So to this day, Clyde has been such an amazing, I'm looking for the right word to say it, but alumnus of Pitt Greensburg. So we were able to take that program from zero for 20 years in 2 conference championships the last 2 years. And once again, you do it with players. Okay. We could talk a little bit about that because we talked about how basketball is now with the NIL, but along with talent, you have to somehow look at a young man and see what type of character they have.
Mm-hmm.
You have to see their personality. Are they going to be able to buy in, not only individually, but team? And I think that's huge. And, the players I recruited over the years, they all bought in. Okay. And so then that year, I'm holding all these part-time jobs. A job at Pitt Greensburg was not full-time, although they did treat me well for a new program. And it was, when you take a job, you take the salary, you accept it, and maybe somewhere along the line you think, what do I have to do now for the family? When after this in 2000, I thought, well, let me try to get back into coaching full time, and that's when I was fortunate to get the Polk State job in Florida.
Okay.
I had Seth Greenberg played a key role in introducing me to the athletic director at Polk, recommending me along with 2 other coaches, and it just gave me an opportunity that I was very happy down Florida for 20 years. I lived there, 17 years at Polk State till I retired from coaching, except the day came when our son and daughter-in-law had 2 young grandchildren. They were moving back to Pittsburgh, and we would have stayed. My wife said, we're moving back. I said, all right. Hey, when? She said, as soon as possible. We're following those grandkids. I said, all right. So the next thing you know, we came back to Pittsburgh.
Sound like my wife. She would do that. We end up having of course, the ranking connection. It's like separation of 6 weeks. You're in a different generation than me, not to date yourself, but
yes, I am.
But we know a lot of the same people. And so happens that we know somebody that coached with you at Polk State that he's not even from Pittsburgh. Steven. He was with Florida Golf for a minute, I guess. Is he still down there? No, he was with North Florida.
Steve Perkins.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, Steve Perkins. Steve has helped me get organized. Organization is not one of my positive, traits. Or I if you looked at my desk now where I'm sitting, I cleaned up behind me. You saw me cleaning up before we got on this call, okay? So, but Steve, I met him. We were both working 5-star camp at Baylor University. And 5-star basketball camp, for anyone who wants to Google it, it wasn't AAUs over the years. It was 5-star basketball camp. The coaches in the country, professional, college, high school, that had a relationship with 5-star, they're in a book.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I met Steve, and he was a graduate manager at Baylor and looking for a job. And I said, Steve, would you want to come to Florida to be an assistant at junior college? And Steve thought about it, and I convinced him to come. The money I paid him, it's embarrassing. Okay. But he wanted to coach collegiately. And it was an opportunity that was good for both of us because we had some success. And, you have to have a staff, an assistant that you're friends with, that you can talk to, that you can get ideas from, and compliment you on your weaknesses. And Steve came in and he brought so much to our program. He loved that I concentrated on defense number one.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the philosophy he brought with him that he learned off Coach Drew, we incorporated it with our play. And Steve probably was very happy playing more of an up-tempo style than I did. But Steve was a great teacher of the game, and he was a great communicator with the players and recruiter. So Steve came, he was with us for 3 years, and then that's when Coach Driscoll left Baylor, who's also a Pittsburgh guy,
mm-hmm.
and got the job with North Florida, and Steve went with him and is still with him today.
Driscoll played at Northgate, right?
Yeah, right. Matt Driscoll's from Northgate, huh?
Yeah. But yeah, I met Steve the same way. I was working at Baylor camp, and 5-star Baylor camp, and he was on the staff. He was like you said, a graduate assistant, but he had basically free reign. I mean, because we used their facility for the All-Star game. You know how 5-star, we always had the All-Star game at the end of camp and all that. And he took me in the back and showed me the locker. I mean, I was like, man, Baylor, it's a pretty nice university, man. It's pretty nice.
That's a beautiful campus.
Yes, it is. A lot of people don't know that. They think it's all, no, it's pretty nice. They got some nice stuff on campus. But after that, you came home from Polk State not that long ago. It's been what? Do you plan on getting back into coaching, or you're just sitting tight?
I tried a couple things. I coached Woodland Hills for 1 year, and I helped out at the local high school, Riverview, over in Oakmont for 1 year. And then I helped out at Carlow College for 1 year, 2 years. But it's just, I just busy doing other things and grandkids involved and all that. I miss coaching. I miss the relationships with other coaches and players. But it's time for me to coach which I'm doing now is my grandson's. I'm assistant coach for my grandson's 9-year-old rec team at the Plum YMCA. So I'm still involved, except it's with my grandchildren now, and I love what I'm doing. But I put a lot of stress on myself in coaching over the years, and my wife saw it, and she was not happy that I took those positions for a couple of years, because I'd come home from practice and I'd say, they didn't do this day. She said, I'm tired of hearing it. I don't want to hear it. She said, I heard it for all those years. I'm done. Don't talk to me about it. I'm like, well, who else am I going to talk to about it, right? If you lose a game, I'm looking at the box score. I'm watching video. I'm looking at turnovers. I'm looking at bad shooting performances. I'm looking at, defensive struggles we might be having. And she says, I'm tired of it. So it just got to a point where, okay, you're tired of it. Well, maybe being in my 70s now, not at the jobs to turn around programs now that has passed me. I just want to help out, and I'm thankful to the coaches gave me that opportunity, but I couldn't put my heart into it like I did. So yeah. I thought, if I can't put my heart into it, then it's time for me to maybe step away.
And I listened to you, Coach, and you did this for like over 35 years at different levels. 40 years.
40 when you count some of the jobs that there's a few high school dates missing from even General Braddock and from so
that's a long time.
Yeah, it is 6 decades. I started in the 70s.
And I experienced I experienced burnout after 10. I was named head coach in 2007 down here at the school I worked at, and I stopped coaching there at 2017, and I was like, man, I'm done. But it was one of those situations where I was doing EYBL in the summer, so I was traveling. I wasn't home because of MOCAN, with the travel ball. Then I was coaching my high school team in June, and then it was travel ball again in July. And then you come back in the fall and it's like a constant circle for like 10 years. 5-star camps in there, other camps here and there.
Yeah.
And I just got to the point where I was like, I'm done. People ask me now and I'm like, no, especially with what I got going on. So I'm like, no, it's too much. It is. So I know how you're feeling, but you did it a lot longer is the point I was trying to make. And I
tell people I live my passion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's what I decided I wanted to do when I was in college. I always loved the game, and I lived my passion.
And you were really good at it. I have to tell you that. Your name rings bells. I mean, so in the Pittsburgh area, Western PA, and other places also. But you're definitely one of the best that did it coming out of that area as a coach. Not too many coaches can say that. There's been a lot of coaches to come out of that area, but you're one of those guys, Calipari type, known. Seth Greenberg. I don't know if he was from Pittsburgh, but I know he coached at Pitt.
No, he's from New York, but of course he spent his time in Pitt.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot. Then you got Rukavina down at Pitt Johnstown still over 20-something years.
Herb Sendek, and you can just talk about all the great high school coaches from this area too.
And Herb Sendek, yes. Herb Sendek was at Arizona State last, so I think he's still coaching. But, yeah, so. But, Coach, I'm glad that you uh, gave me the time to spend with you today and join my all sports related podcast. And this is a new endeavor for me because I was just doing a football podcast, but now I'm doing all sports, and I plan to keep in touch with you and see how everything is going. And this will make sure that you have all the information you can to get, so you can see this also.
Well, thanks, James. Thank you for letting me be part of your show and one of the first ones that you've interviewed. It was nice of us to connect. I wish you a lot of success with this. You know, I watched the first podcast you did, and it was wonderful. It was entertaining, and I know you're going to have many more coming. So you're living your passion, and that's what's important.
Yep, it is. It's good therapy for me. But I appreciate you, Coach. You have a good day and enjoy them grandchildren.
Thank you, James. Appreciate
Okay.
it. And I
Okay.
have 3 older ones also in Alabama.
Oh, wow.
One's a graduate of Pitt, and 2 are at Auburn University right now. So I might be one of the only people to wear Auburn University sweatshirt hoodie around Western Pennsylvania. So if you see an Auburn hoodie, chances are it's me. Okay. All right, James. Have a good one.
Take it easy.
Bye-bye.